In this episode of the Checkmate 256, week 16, we are having a hot icebreaker to discuss whether there's a deliberate plan by the state to make Ugandans move on from the injustices and the shortfalls that we saw in the 2026 elections. We are also discussing the twists in the Anita Among Mao race and what direction it might take as we get closer to the days of the swearing in and the speakership race. We are also discussing, of course, the unfortunate incidents that happened in Gaba and the trial of Okello Onyum and the act, the police and the mobile court. We are talking about the talk and the echoing talk of the extension of the presidential and member of parliament tenure to 7 years from 5. We'll also tell you about the fallacy of the separation of powers in light of the money given to the MPs and the influence of the president in the other arms of government. And we'll tell you different examples of where we are picking that discussion from, where the CG swore from and what it means. We'll also tell you about the fight against corruption, whether it is an act or just a show, with the example of the prosecution and conviction of Agnes Nandutu. Finally, we will discuss, of course, the plight of Mufumbiro and the unfortunate passing of the wife and what it means for political prisoners and the talk of the national soul. This is the Checkmate 256. Is the news moving too fast for you to keep up, or worse? Do you feel like you're getting the headlines but missing the real stories?
Welcome to Checkmate 256. This is where we slow down the week's chaos for you. We don't just report what is happening in Uganda, but we also analyze why it is happening and what that means for your life.
So if you're tired of being checked by the news and you are ready to make your own move, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications and share with the friends who need to stay informed. Welcome to the game. This is the Checkmate 256. And we are back. This is the Checkmate 256, week 16 of 2026. We missed this place, but here we are. And if you're just watching us for the first time, this is a podcast that summarizes for you the things that are making headlines in Uganda. So if you by any chance landed on this, please hit the subscribe button, share this with every patriotic Ugandan and make sure they become part of the making. And I don't do this alone. I do this with my brother and friend, Nicholas. You're welcome to this episode of the Checkmate.
Thank you.
How have you been?
I've been well.
Do you want to tell the viewers your highlight and low light, the good and bad of the past fortnight in Uganda, in summary?
I think that, one, good day, our viewers. I think that we're going to be discussing in details. Today is a very serious episode.
That's true.
And I want to call upon us to, because this is the soul of the nation. We're trying to succor the soul of the nation. Yeah. And the destiny of every citizen of the republic depends upon some of these conversations. So and today the issues we're going to handle are very consequential issues in as far as the destiny of this nation is concerned. So I want to ask our viewers to stick through with us and watch this episode to the end. And therein, peradventure, something is going to change.
Yeah, as he said, we are just trying to balm the scarred soul of the nation. And it's a hot episode because I read through our topics and then I realized that the things that made news the past 2 weeks are in the heart and soul of every nation. And ours seem to be taking a bad trajectory. And we hope that these conversations can change a little bit of the direction that this nation is taking. So we'll not waste further time. Let's just dig straight into it. But before the topics, Nicholas, and this is the icebreaker of what we have been talking about and thinking through since the year began. There's been that discussion of there's been a deliberate doctoring of the news and the happenings in the state. That it seems there's a deliberate plan by the state to make people move on from the mishappenings and the unfortunate happenings in the 2026 election. So are you of the school of thought that the state has successfully diverted the country from the 2026 election shortfalls and injustices?
I don't think, because news by nature, society by nature moves on. I don't think that this is mid-April coming to May, 4 months later, that the nation would still dwell, especially considering the things that happen in the aftermath of every election. there is announcements, there is disputes, there is court cases, there is appointments here and there coming through, there's these retreats, and the other functionalities of the nation continue in security, in parliament sessions, in budgeting. So naturally, a nation is going to move forward. Although I want to say yes, that in some instances there have been deliberate plots where they want you to quickly move away from this kind of news. But I don't think that the happenings and mishappenings of the 2020
deliberate
of the election, it's now too far for us to still be dwelling, especially with the news, because the news is what is new today. You know, we'll talk about maybe the case in Gaba, and people have, that's now not, people are not following the court proceedings the way they are following them on Monday when the case has started. You know? Yes. So the nature of news is that people are going to go on, and the nature of Uganda is that these are people who actually eventually go on.
So if there was a situation room at the Special Forces Command in Entebbe to steer the country and make sure that all is well, do you think this would be the time to disband it and move on, because people are in the right state of mind to move on from the elections as the state would want them to?
To move on from the elections, or from what is happening generally?
From what many would term as the injustices, or the things that the pro-democrats would not be comfortable with about how the election went in January.
I think people have moved on, because in Uganda there is nothing you can do. We have political prisoners who are still being held. We have outright injustices that we are going to talk about if we get a chance in this election. We even have ghosts, you know, from the past election. The happenings in Masaka, I'm afraid, and I was thinking about our friend Council of Chira.
Yes, Council George Musisi.
Council Musisi. There has been petitioned. I think the gentleman is called, is it Kananura?
I think it's the one who was fourth or something.
Yes. But you see, the reason why he has the guts to petition is because of what he saw happening in Masaka, because of what he saw happening in the
the president came and said he orchestrated the whole plan.
Yes, in the gubernatorial, the gubernatorial is a different regions. In the mayor races,
yes.
In both Chira municipality
yes.
and here Naja Nasif in Wakiso. So if you see that someone who has polled 4,000 votes,
there was also an attempt on the National Female Youth MP, something like that.
Someone who has polled 4,000 votes is announced as the winner, that now they have 18,000. So they have beaten someone who had 16,000 votes. Then I would also master the courage to say, no, let me, I was fourth or fifth, but let me can take better, because I'm
maybe the system can
use me. Yes. So the gentleman who has that court case against Musisi must be somewhere right now trying to say, can what happened in Masaka or in this place benefit me? So I think that we have ghosts that are following us from that election, and until all the electioneering is done and appointments are done, we will not be able to have
the last election
behind.
Petition is hard.
Yes.
The cabinet is on and swearing in is done.
We will not be able to put this chapter behind us.
Okay, thank you. I thought that would be very important to sort of launch us to what we're going to discuss today, because most of it spews from the status before election and what marred the election period in Uganda. So the first topic we are discussing today still also relates to the elections, and that's still the continuation of the twists in the speakership race between Norbert Mao and Anita Among. I don't need to say much about that, because every Ugandan has been following the trends of it, and to the point that when the NRM was having a retreat, Norbert Mao, who's the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, was invited as a guest. You remember the speech that was done by the speaker, where he's saying, while we can work with different political parties, but when we invite you in the sitting room, you just don't find us in the bedroom. And also Mao responds and says, you are also an adopted child. And there's an altercation, people trying to manage Museveni to say something about it. And when he had a turn to say, and he sort of praises the leadership qualities of Mao and says that while Sek said A, when the time comes, that can be discussed. Mao just thumbs as if he's getting the validation of what he's been pushing, that the race is not closed, while the pro-AAA camp is basically saying that they're just trying to manage him and there's more to it that we are not saying. and seeing in that the most important news is not coming to the newsrooms, in other words? Is there anything, or you're still subscribing to the school of thought that this might be scripted and there's nothing more to it?
One, I think that I want to believe the latter much more than the former. For everything that is happening, I think that my initial position still stands.
I remember it.
And so I want to give it a little bit of background, then come to...
Please.
Yeah. Because we said here, shortly after the SEC, a letter had come out, yes, that Anita Among and Thomas Tayebwa, the Right Honorables, had been endorsed by the SEC to be Speaker and Deputy Speaker, yeah, for another term, as customary has been happening in the NRM, that Speaker serves 2 terms, then the Deputy takes over, something like that. I came here and said that because the assumption was that this is a transitional term, yeah, and that assumption
occupies certain positions matter.
Yes, that assumption that this would be the transition term was at the helm of my submission, and this is the submission that I made, is that Among is bad for Museveni if Museveni intends that this should be a transition term, and especially, or even more especially, if, God forbid, something that happens to Museveni and he's not able to complete this term of office among the living. Why? Because one, and we said these things because this opinion has been re-echoed by so many people who analyze things same, and some of them are senior analysts. But we said this. I think you can go back and check on our episode where there was a gentleman called Okot seated with us sometime shortly after the election. That one Among has amassed a lot of power. Yeah, she has amassed, and I didn't know the scale of her power. And people talked about how she, apart from parliament, because I thought parliament, opposition people, these SEC and whatever. But I'm told she has the bishops, Anglicans, in Catholics, Muslims,
the riches, men,
government organizations, judges, justice, police, everywhere. This lady, the first family, and first family I'm talking about maybe 3-4 people. This is the most powerful Ugandan that does not carry the blood of Museveni or Kagota. You see that kind of thing?
I get you.
So Museveni
carry it or marry into it.
Yeah.
That
yes.
Side too.
Yes, that side too. Yeah. Museveni has this kind of ambitious, rich, influential, persuasive, because under normal circumstances, Harold, for the work that Anita Among has done for Museveni for this term,
this would be automatic.
This should be an automatic sport.
Yes,
this should be the right hand man, and Museveni should be proud and say, it's like when you have someone that has fished for you, has done everything for you. Recently, I was watching a funeral service of. I think let's not go there because it's going to be a sad thing. But you have someone that has fished, that has understood what you need, has done everything to support, to this. Museveni should be holding Anita Among and telling people, you need to be like this woman. See that kind of thing? Under normal circumstances. Except these are not normal circumstances. True. When Museveni realizes that everything he told people in the Bush War and the pre-Bush War and in the first initial elections is all a lie, when he wakes up and says, you know what? I need to consolidate power. I need to later hand it over to my son. I need to rule maybe until I drop, He sees the stubbornness of some of his generals, including Kano Besigye, David Tinyafuza, Henry Tumukunde, Anthony Chakabare, Samson Mande, and these others who, some of them have remained some of them have remained on junior positions everywhere. So when he reads this picture and understands it, and that's the fundamental difference between him and Mugabe. Yeah, Museveni, what does he do? He first of all purges the ranks of the UPDF from all these people, puts them on Katebe, sends them to deployments. Simanyi they are ambassadors of Burundi. Simanyi where army attaché in Israel.
Take away real power, basically.
Takes away. And what does he do? Rebirth a new army. Rebirths a new army that does not have these old clones. Because the old clones have credit in and of themselves that we are stakeholders.
Yes.
So they feel like we are stakeholders in this country. And every time you have stakeholders, they keep waiting for their turn because
and
they know.
They're justifiably entitled.
Yes, they're entitled because they shed their blood. They sacrificed a lot of things. You see that kind of thing? So Museveni having understood, that the direction I want to take for this nation, I don't want to hand over power, number one. Number two, I want to rule for as long as I can. Number three, I like to these people, some of them might develop the need to revenge, to stage an uprising, to do what? Number four, I want to hand over to I want to consolidate a monarchy of some sort. He goes through all those steps, drops those generals, many of them are retired, promoted young tribesmen, created an army within an army. That is basically its first role is the protection of the Museveni dynasty. You see that kind of thing? And for them, they are irrational. They don't care about what. For them, they are fighting for Museveni and Muhoozi. And protecting their interests. Because now they believe, because there is also a tribal intonation that now this is their thing. You see that kind of thing? So Museveni does and gets rid of every of these powerful people. Why? So that when the time for the son to take over comes, and this is, guys, this is you don't understand how this is a genius. That this thing you are able to, and Museveni can be at fault for many things, but he is a master at foresight and a master strategist. This man has studied politics. He's a professor. Professorship is not going to class, by the way. It is embracing being a master of a field. Museveni is more than a professor of politics. You can't lead these stubborn Ugandans for 40 years when you have not reached a certain level. When he discovers all these things, he puts all these people aside. Now, the most powerful general in the UPD, who's the most powerful general in the UPDF?
Please, continue with your...
No. I'm asking you.
Continue with
you want me to be arrested alone? Who is the most powerful? Harold. You want me to be taken around to the basement?
But of course, I think the most powerful person is the CDF.
Is a CDF. Yes. Thank you very much. And right now, when the CDF speaks, there is nobody, apart from, and I will talk about him later, apart from...
Please.
RO 0014, the General Kaindo Tafiri.
Yes.
Now everyone has been brought down to a position where they can salute. People who are even so powerful, the Kaihuras now has to beg the CDF to make a public appearance, to be considered, to even gain his freedom, that he is now a free man.
I need to appear at a state function,
It is at the mercy of these people. Now, I want us to get that Museveni vis-a-vis Mugabe's strategy. What Mugabe does is almost the same that Museveni does in terms of vision, what he wants to do with his regime, and eventually when Mugabe wants to leave power in 2017, because both of them stayed. Mugabe 2017 from 1980, when the Lancaster Agreement was ratified for Zambia to become Zimbabwe from Rhodesia. He ruled from 1980 to 2017. Those were 37 years. Museveni has ruled for about 40. At the end of his leadership, though, the ZANU-PF, his party splits into two.
Sure.
One part of the party, like now how you see there is PLU, there is... one part of the party that is...
that was by Morgan Tsvangirai?
No. Morgan Tsvangirai was in opposition.
But formerly ZANU-PF?
Yeah,
that split is the waves,
second one. No, this is an internal split.
Okay.
Yeah, like how two factions can come up in NRM.
Yeah,
there's PLU, then there is maybe Tova Kumuzei.
Yeah.
So there were two. There was one they called Generation 40. Generation 40 was led by Grace Mugabe.
Oh, okay.
Who wanted to become president after the husband.
Yes.
Robert Mugabe. Now the second was led by the then vice president, the now current president. Emerson Mnangagwa, which was Team Lacoste or Crocodile. Yeah. So when these two come up, of course, at that age, when you're 94 years old, Mugabe is not in control of his faculties anymore. His power is like now
Museveni. It's in the name more than the.
There are so many things that happen, and you understand that Museveni doesn't know this is happening in this country, which is different from 10, 15 years ago.
Course,
when he had his nose everywhere. If there was said a vendor who was being evicted from a shop in Chukwu, Museveni would be in there. No. You see that kind of thing. But you see so many things happening right now, and Museveni doesn't know this is happening here, because as you grow older, power just seems you are unable to be that vigilant.
Biology takes its course.
So in 2017, Robert Mugabe is old and senile. Grace Mugabe is manipulating him to cede his seat so that she's the next.
First in ZANU-PF and then president.
Yes, of course. I mean, when some of these countries, the party.
If you have the party, you have the country.
You have the country. It's almost. A one-party state, but I mean there is opposition to have a feel and everything. However, the problem that Mugabe finds himself in is that whereas Museveni purged his military and his leadership position of the people that came from the bush with him, Robert Mugabe does not. The vice president, who's the current president, Emerson Mnangagwa, is around. Emerson Mnangagwa joined the revolution as old as soon as he was of independent age. He in 63 he was a terrorist.
That far.
They used to attack white farms. So in 65 they bombed some trains and he's put in prison for 10 years up to 75. When he comes from 75, he goes to Zambia, does a law degree, comes back 2 years later and joins ZANLA in Mozambique. ZANLA was the Zimbabwean African National Liberation Army, which was the army wing of ZANU, which was the political wing that was headed by Mugabe, that was advocating for the independence of Zimbabwe. So this man's journey starts from as far as, and by this time that he is in prison, Grace Mugabe is being born.
He has given his 10 years of his life in prison. For this cause.
He goes to war in Mozambique. Comes to attacking these people. He even escorts, because in 79 he becomes the deputy of Mugabe and escorts him to Lancaster, where the agreement was signed. And from then he has been an MP since then, since 1980. He has been an MP up to 2017. Fun fact. Do you guess who replaced him when he left?
Please.
Auxilia Mnangagwa, his wife. He has been MP. He has been minister in various positions. He has been Speaker of the House. He is now Vice President. He is in a powerful position. In the story from the first chapter. 50 years. 37 years. He has his own ecosystem of people. And that is very hard to displace. When this is how events unfold, by the way. They unfold in November, I think, of 2017. So on the 6th November 2017, that's when Mugabe decides to fire Emerson on a rally.
Yes, I understand.
So he fires him.
Open fire. 2
days later, Mnangagwa leaves the country under fear that the
next thing might be to arrest him.
The army chief, actually the chief of all the defense forces,
holds the presser.
No. Was out in China. His name is Constantine Chikwenga, who is now the vice president.
Yes.
But who is Constantine Chikwenga? Constantine Chikwenga is a guy who joined the military also in the days of the struggle. Actually was one of the first senior officers of ZANLA. Shortly after they got independence in 1980, in 81, he became brigadier general. He became brigadier general in 81, and in 1994, and led one of the first battalions that was in the south of the country, where the Shona people are. In 1994, he was promoted to major general and made the chief of the military, the army head, just the army. In 2004, 10 years later, he became the chief of defense forces, like the joint chief of staff.
I'm turning your clock.
Yes, like the joint chief of staff, which means that he had now command over the army,
the army,
police, prisons, intelligence services. see that kind of thing. And he stays in that position from 2004 to 2017. That's 13 years in that kind of position. Now what happens that he's on a state visit to China. When he's on a state visit to China,
November 2017.
Yes. He learns that Mugabe has ordered his arrest because now Mnangagwa is out of the country. They are now trying to take out everyone who has Team Lacoste so that Team Generation 40 can be the one that can steer the country forward, which was Grace Mugabe. Yeah. So Chikwenga learns, because of the web network and everything that Mugabe has issued an arrest, a silent arrest, that when he reaches the airport, arrest him. So he has sent police. So people loyal to him because this guy has been an army. This guy has fought in the Bush War.
Yes.
This is like Sejus. This guy has fought in the Bush War, has been a minister, has been chief of has been an army commander, these people basically has mentored these people look at him as a hero.
Exactly.
They come and disguise as baggage handlers, like these boys who used to work for the former Enhance, these baggage handlers. So guys come from the army, they disguise as those ones. When the plane lands down, they overpower the police, arrest them, create way for Chikwenga
to enter the country.
Yeah. Now, what happens when they
don't mention the name, but do we have such a powerful person
I am coming. I am coming. That's where I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah. When he comes to the country, that's when now the army starts to move on.
Yes,
Goes, they surround what would be now Radio Uganda, the broadcaster, and the State House. Then a guy called Sibusiso Moyo, the Gen Zs called him General Bay because he was youthful, he was mid-50s, and because now he's with these men who are 70, 80. For him, he was youthful and chubby. So very, very likable guy. And the Gen Zs called him General Bay. Was the chief of was the information head of the country, of the minister of the country. And what he does is that he announces and says, guys, the president is safe, his family is safe, but we are targeting these people around him, the criminals around him that are making,
trying to cause
trouble,
country.
And that is how, in a few day or so, Mugabe is forced to resign. The Gracies are expelled from the party. He first flees to South Africa and whatever, and these people restore sanity to the country. Yeah.
All that time the crocodile is still in.
That becomes a time of restructuring. Yes. Now the crocodile comes back and assumes
power in ZANU-PF.
Yes. And Chikwenga, and then they do elections and everything. Now.
And you should say that he's attempting to repeat the same mistake.
No. I'm going to come there, Harold. You're going ahead of me. I'm going to come there.
I'm looking at your timer. We have a lot to discuss.
For me, if we discuss this point to conclusion, with the other topics, our viewers can forgive us for the other topics because this what I'm saying it lightly, but this can happen. This is something that I have visualized and I can see that it can happen anytime.
I get you.
Yeah. So what the mistakes that Mugabe does is making these people stay relevant, stay powerful, stay with force.
Real power and official power.
Because they look at Grace Mugabe as Grace Mugabe married Robert. She was 31, he was 72.
Something.
She was a secretary in one of the offices of the president. So they see her as, the Bible says in Proverbs 30, one of the things the world detests is a maid who supplants a mistress. Yeah. So they look at you as a maid. You are a maid. Yeah. You are a child. We have fought battles for this country. Who are you to think? Yeah. So what Museveni does effectively is that he removes these people that would otherwise have become
relevant
pillars, a memio to say that no, for us we are here and we are taking this country because we fought for it. Yeah. Let me ask a question,
please,
rhetorically. Do you know who the head of CMI is
right now?
Yes.
A normal Ugandan wouldn't.
Do you know that it's not even called CMI now? It's
it changed.
But there's a gentleman I think called I forget his name. Do you know who the deputy CDF is?
It's no longer important to know.
Major General Richard Otto is the leader of, is it called now Defense and Security something? Samuel Okiding, Lieutenant General, is the deputy CDF. Yeah? Do you remember the ISO of Kaka Bajenda? Of Katogogu, Jim Muhwezi? You remember that kind of ISO?
I get you.
Do you remember the ISO of David Pulkol? But do you know even who heads ISO? Even if you met him on the street, a gentleman called, I think, Major Arthur Mujenyi, something. Even if you met him in one day on the streets in Chanja, on the ring, in the supermarket, you can bypass him. Yeah? So the reign of these powerful people that have precedence, that have experience, that have respect, that can rally people is well behind us.
I get you.
Now, the thing that Museveni should not repeat is having this kind of powerful figure. Yeah? That you have displaced all these powerful figures to pave way. Yeah?
For a plan that you have.
For a plan that you have. And let's call the plan what it is. Let's say Moho's project. Yeah? But you have this powerful figure here that in the absence of Museveni, because you say, Harold, we can sit here and say this is rented power, anytime they can strike it off. But if the president was out of the equation right now, yeah? Anita Among could become the second most powerful person in Uganda. Moho's Ggaba.
I get you.
You see that kind of thing? But then the question is, someone who has managed to talk to opposition people to a point of recruiting a leader of opposition in parliament. These are unprecedented levels of persuasion. Yeah? Mobilization. Has mobilized the country, is everywhere with reverends, fathers, judiciary, everything. What do you think can happen if she decides that no, let me talk to some army people and see if I can recruit an army of my own, or if I can cash in on the dissent that is in the security forces? It's that kind of thing. Because you see, revolutions are funny things because sometimes they're emotional. It's that kind of thing. Napoleon said that a revolution is an idea which one of its children. No, he says a revolution is an idea that has found its bayonets. But he also said that a revolution can't be formed or stopped. All it takes is one of its several children to give it direction by a dint of victories. In Zimbabwe at this moment, there were so many people in dissent of Mugabe, but nobody can come out.
They felt helpless.
Yeah? So when the child of the revolution, Constantine Chakwenga, gave them a dint of victory that I can come to the nation and we arrest police and I've outsmarted Mugabe. That is when many people came up and said, now we are bold enough. Yeah? Now we are, and this coup was very bloodless.
Yeah, that's true.
It was very bloodless.
In fact, in the presser, what I remember about that presser is that before they updated the country what was going on, they first assured the nation that Mugabe was okay.
Yes, that's what...
that was the first statement.
General Bay, he was a good guy and he was tipped to become the next president. Unfortunately, rest in peace, he died of COVID. He was the one handling, excellent communicator. With a PhD in communication. Excellent communicator, really. So he was the one handling the communication so that the nation knows to calm down and everyone was in agreement that no, Mugabe needs to go.
Well, yes.
But before Mugabe needs to go, but before that, because people think Mugabe has been an all-powerful leader for 37 years, nobody can come out. Exactly. Although in their hearts something is boiling, but because they've been given some money, somewhat, they're on Generation 40, they're trading words with, and there are those in cabinet, they're trying to toe the line because I don't want any trouble, you know. But in the sentiment, so when Napoleon says that one of his children of the revolution, when they give it direction by a dint of victories, those guys come.
Now comes to join.
So what happened? What could happen in Uganda? And a question will come up and say, how can Ugandans say Anita Among, she's been eating with them, she's been what? But I told you, revolutions are emotional. Yeah? And later, maybe, if time allows us, we'll talk about an angle that I want to bring, the Tunisian revolution, which was called the Tunisian Revolution of Dignity, that was sparked by Muhammad Bouazizi, who self-immolated. Yeah? But that will be in the nick of time. When this revolution starts, it does not reason. Yeah? All it has to do is, we need to get out Mugabe now, we shall sort the country later.
We'll find a way.
So if Among came up and said, or those who support her and said, you know what, Museveni has ruled us for 40 years. And now his son, The immediate emotion can be, let's get rid of the Kaguta Republic, then we shall sort the nation. We shall find a way to sort the nation. And if Among can give these people a dint of these victories, because the truth of the matter is, Harold, the people that we spoke about that the president has been putting aside, has been putting on Katebe, they are not satisfied.
I get you.
Right now, they cannot say anything because
they're in a prison of sorts.
They're in some kind of prison. It's only, and I wanted to appreciate more, honestly speaking. I want to appreciate more the role of Kahindo Tafire in the revolution from his Fronasa days to the Bush War and to the Museveni government, because the fact that he's able to come out and speak and challenge like that.
That's true.
And even himself, he said that when Museveni...
You saw in one of the tweets, was warning him.
Yes, of course, Museveni has always been warning him and his cronies, you know. And he said that sometimes when Museveni can't deal with, when they can't agree, Museveni say, murge out again. Let him say what he wants to say. Let's go forward. So I want to understand, because he seems to speak in a certain way that Tumukunde could not, Jim always could not.
And then did, but outside, yes.
And then I asked myself, and then I realized that he is the second most senior person in the ranks of NRA that still lives. Yeah, because the first one is Museveni. Then there is a plethora of guys who died, even those who died before the Martin Mwesigwas, the Mwesigwa Blacks, the whoever's. And then RO 014 Kahindo Tafire. Way above actually the next one is Rwigema, then Salim Sari. So I'm wondering, what did this guy do that even puts him above those two? Because those two are the heroes of the revolution, are the foremost heroes of the revolution. Yeah. So these people that you see down there, you know, are not seated, are not they are quiet, about how are not are going through. And in the absence of Museveni, could turn out very different. Now, they say Ogamba Kabituwa Bakaresiri, meaning don't shoot the messenger. Someone might watch this and be like, this guy is no. For us, we're just
analyzing things and picking precedent.
Yes. So having Anita Among, very powerful mobilizer, very rich woman right now, given other 5 years, perhaps her wealth even explodes even more. For me, I see that it's something very, very dangerous, especially considering that with the absence of Museveni, the truth of the matter is there is nobody now who's holding the nation together. Because you can say Mohoz, but Mohoz, even in the army, could have some part of the army. But I don't think that the army is unanimously. Because you see, when we talk about generals...
The whole semi-separation of the SFC with the rudiment of the primary UPDF, it's also something to discuss and understand.
That one will come to that level. But let's talk about Mohoz as a general. Because when you talk about generals like David Oite Ojok, yeah? When you talk about generals like Napoleon Bonaparte, when you talk about generals like Idi Amin, okay, let's now bring it back to our history here. When you talk about some of these Bush War people, you realize that that there is something. When Napoleon comes from St. Helena, from Elba, where he was first.
The second reign.
The first time. Is it Elba? I think the first time he was exiled at Elba.
It was Elba.
When he comes back, when he reaches the coast, of France, the same army that had been sent, the same thing happens which happened to Chikwenga. The same army that had been sent to arrest him.
He convinces them.
He says, guys, since I left, where is your glory?
Yes.
Who has been fighting? I put you on the world map.
How many battles have you won?
France was respected throughout Europe. Look at you. You're rugged. You're what? And they say you are the one. Because soldiers love victory and pride.
Yes.
Yeah? And that sense of pride and dignity, we are the foremost. So they lead him back and depose of the regime, and he rules for another 100 days. Yeah. So, which is the same thing which happened in Zimbabwe when Chikwenga comes back. Yeah. Meaning that these are generals that people would be willing to die for. Yeah. These are generals that people would be willing to die for. You know, but it is too early now to analyze and say that Muhoozi Kainerugaba would hold the nation together now. Let's say something happened tonight. Yeah, that Muhoozi Kainerugaba would effectively have the country in control. It means that he would still have to use an element of force. Yeah, and finally, Napoleon said, as I conclude that, he said that Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I, built our empires, and what did we rest our creations on? He asks. Force. He says then therefore that Jesus Christ built his empire on love, and right now millions of people could die for him. Now he's referencing the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great, the Roman Empire of Julius Caesar, the Holy Roman Empire of Charlemagne, and his Napoleonic Empire. You know, and he's saying that for us, we sustained our empires through force. Yeah. That's where we have rested
the
them.
Bayonet and the gun.
Yeah. That's where we have rested them. Actually, you talk about the bayonet and the gun. I remember one of his other quotes. He says that in the world there are two forces in the world. Yeah. He says there is force and the spirit.
Yes.
And that he says that eventually the spirit will overpower the force. You see that kind of thing? So we can say that he's holding the country on force. We can force everyone to do what we want to do. But that is not sustainable. Eventually, the spirit, the people eventually prevail over the force that you might have temporarily in the ephemeral managed people with. Therefore, as I conclude, Harold, that was my point that I premised on to say, that I thought, in my view, Museveni is a very wise gentleman, that he would see that the current speakership does not, in the event that in the event, because I've seen the man is very healthy actually. I've seen him in Chankwanzi. The man is actually very healthy. We might end up with a Paul Biya situation here. And a healthy Museveni,
but he's holding everything
is going to be very hard to hand over power to say that, yes, I am healthy, I am living, but I feel tired.
That's not him.
I don't think that is him, for those who have studied him.
Let me give you my technical on this very point. One of the things that was very awakening in this discussion was the tweet by Muhozi telling Mao to stand down.
Yes.
When I read that tweet, I was vindicated in what I said in the first discussion, that the day the SEC guys knocked on Entebbe Plot 1 and said, we have come, sir, to endorse Anita Among, Museveni was in a place of, though I didn't prepare for this, but I can't be seen fighting these guys that have been heavily mobilized by Anita Among to come here and be as if one voice, and me, the chairperson of the party, and I'm saying, mwetware, pola, let's listen to the people. Because that would be something that he does not want. And especially for someone who had, in quotes, delivered an election. I know that's the speech that Museveni does not like. And when Kadaga tried it, we know what happened. So in that place and the different mobilization, now Among goes to different MPs to start sending videos for endorsement and stuff like that. The internal discussion would be now, Museveni faced the reality. This is not the battle that you're going to win right now, whether democratically or power or on mobilization, or even with a voice, even if you supervise the election like you did for Kadaga and Olanya, may he so rest in eternal peace. So what do? You let them be, but see how to deal with them in the course of the speakership race. And I think that's the direction that it's going to take.
For me, conclusionary, now on the...
reward, and then the missing part, reward Mao otherwise by showing them that he's part of the making, and as a steady standby force in case you need a powerful person that has already had a voice of the rest of the members of parliament and the public, that public image of a leader.
I think that which I gave before was what I thought Museveni in his thinking should see. But now from what has happened since then up to now, I feel like, because I told you, under normal circumstances, the speaker should be an opposite. She should be a front runner. It should just be that they're going to go through an election just because of it's a tradition. Maybe Muryanyama is standing against him to just say this is the opposition, something. Yeah? But this is something that should not have any debate, that she is a front runner in the election. But the reason why she is at the level where, and to know that there is Bunkenke, she reaches a level where, okay, she's foul-mouthed, but she reaches a level where the bedroom, those are signs of someone saying, those are signs of someone that is not comfortable. In full control. Is that I think that the herdsmen, her bosses, wanted to put her in a place where they let her remember
That we have the real
You
power
serve at the pleasure of these people.
of the Caesar.
You could have power, you could have your influence, you could have your attributes. Thank you for so much. You could have everything you have done, but don't forget who you
The real boss is,
serve,
as they say.
who you serve. So I think personally now that when they realize that she has learned the lesson, and I think that she was in Gulu, she is pleading, I think that eventually they will let her go, and she will successfully become speaker by a landslide, and Mao definitely will be rewarded with something maybe bigger in his capacity, and the rest is going to be history. That is what I think is going to happen.
Wow. Okay. I think we have done justice to that topic, and we wait to see how that goes. Let's now go to the second story, which is the Gaba unfortunate murders. And everyone who is in Uganda has been following the story where Awan Okello, Christopher Okello Onyum, entered a daycare center that was church-owned and slit the throats of 4 toddlers. May their soul rest in peace, and may God comfort their families. In the wake of that unfortunate incident, of course, he was arrested. I'm still using the word, I should have said allegedly. Allegedly entered the daycare center and slit the throat of 4 and was arrested on site. People wanted to lynch him. Police comes in, puts him in. And then the minister goes on site, Nicholas, and says we close the school and even the upper section. During the burial service, the other minister, Baram, comes and says, oh no, what Minister Muyingo said, no. It was an overshoot. Let's just close this pending the investigations. Of course, people are saying that that's a minister who owns schools. There have been incidents, but such thing has not been done. But we can go on and on. The president comes, Nicholas, and says, let's enact the mobile courts and take the court on site to try this this suspect, which has been done on site in Gaba, a tent erected. I think 1,000 people enter because that's what it can take, gets lawyers, and the trial is going on, still listening to the prosecution witnesses, not at the point of no case to answer submissions. Where we are and what we are discussing and what we've seen is the act itself. People are saying different things. This person who has lived in America, we saw one of the witnesses was a landlord in Chanja. We saw the government pathologist and the medical officer saying the man, much as he might have some cutting in the head, but he's okay, he's a sickler. The act itself, if you read the medical report, on lack of a better word, the finesse he used to cut the throats of the toddlers, it's something that I saw that one of the witnesses saying maybe he was chasing wealth and believing in those things. Let's talk about the act. Let's talk about the police in handling the situation. And also talk about the courts, where now the court, as some people are calling it, just judicial lynching. And now the president is the one commanding on how things should run. What have you, and also the reaction from the public that we should not miss, the rage, how can this person have a lawyer, why are they giving him water, etc. What did the story tell about the society and the systems? Thank you.
One, let's start by saying that the president always commands what happens everywhere. I saw Seron Kuma recently reminding people when the president, in one of his speeches, and sometimes I think he forgets, that he shouldn't be saying that publicly. When he said that they arrested this father in Masaka, they have been asking me to release him. I said no.
Let him be there.
So it's not now a secret anymore that the man in the high castle is the one running the judiciary, because if he has the guts to even admit it in public that I refused them to release this, when he was talking about how he facilitated the massive abortion of justice in Masaka, he proudly, and he's saying it proudly, and he's calling these people, and they are his daughters. I saw every criminal, the man was calling them, I say him calling people who had been arrested for stealing money of cooperatives, saying, where's Namuju? She's around here. She's around here. Hey, my daughter, come. And this is a warm embrace. Okay? But this is not the topic. We'll come down to that. But this is very unprecedented, Harold. Yeah, in Uganda, which puts us in a very the shock of society, because when something unprecedented happens, yeah, like when the bombs of 2010 went off in Chadondo and other places, this is something the country has not seen, at least in a very, very, very long time. Yeah, that seems to shake the nation to the very core, and I can understand the reactionary procedures. They have. When was the last time we had a public court? Yeah, especially here in the city, where
except for the military courts,
the courts are everywhere. Yeah, and somebody try. So in 1 week, the fire has already been sanctioned.
Everything is moving.
Everything is moving. Witnesses are on stand and everything. Day. You know. So this is very unprecedented, and as a parent, it is so brutal. So I want to condone with the parents of the kids that one of the gentlemen who was there, one of the parents, said on the funeral service that the kid had told him, "Today I don't want to go to school, Daddy." You know, but you know how kids can be. You're like, come on. So you don't forgive yourself of that. The what ifs are so many. What if I had accepted? What if I had left and the mother was mother was there and the mother had allowed him to stay home? What if they were in class and the Mutemu found other kids? What if? So many what ifs that come at that level. So it's painful, and we want to condone. We want to mourn
condole
with those that are mourning, and hope that we will not have that happen in our country. But before we go any further, I want to understand what is the history of the suspect. Yeah, Harold.
The father in the statement said that it's alleged that he has ever killed a relative.
Yes. No, the mother came out of the kid. There was a story that was moving around. I think she's called Florence Nansamba. She alleges that on the 27th day of December 2018, this same gentleman she was married to the father. She was a step mother of Okello. Okello strangles her kid. It was called Freeman. Yeah, with a rope in the neck, and after does that Kavera thing where you cover so that you kill. It's that kind of thing. There is a case that is reported at police. The file disappears. The boy, I think, goes to Botabika. Somehow they found a way of him going out of the nation. Yeah.
To the US.
And then
and not for the first time.
Yes. And then he finds a way of slipping back to the nation. And then now he has killed 4 children. What does that mean? That means that everyone that assisted him
to escape
from taking accountability of being charged of the first crime should be a co-conspirator right now in court, because you have abetted in the crime. These kids, these 4 kids would be alive right now if the law had taken its course in the first time. So that kind of thing. So if it was the family, they should be answering for the crimes that they helped this young man escape justice. If it is the police, because the lady said she opened up, she even was saying the file name. And I saw the CID or whatever police saying that we shall also investigate that. But no, you will not. You will not.
As long as
who was the OC? Who are the people that this case was reported to? The file is not being seen. That is a cartel. Those people are responsible for the blood that was shed in Gaba. Because there's a public debate right now in America. Yeah? You know, in America, the justice system keeps the judges fall naturally in the two sides of
course, of
the political aisle, either Democrats or the Republicans. Now, I don't understand, as something that I'm going to read about more deeply, why Democrats or liberals, let me just call them that, have a certain predisposition to crime, to gun violence, to illegals. No, gun rights is actually the other side. Yeah, to illegals. They have a certain soft spot for crime and people and criminals. Right now, by the way, the law, I think, failed to pass of that voting should be by ID. You need an ID to literally do everything in America, but they said, no, you can't, because the Democrats know that if they vote, because there are so many people that voting without an ID
would delete
brings in so many people, these illegals, these whatever's, aliens, Hispanics, these Muslims that come in from all sorts of are
most
protected.
of the illegal immigrants, basically.
So most of these judges across the state, especially the ones that lie on the other side, on the liberal side, someone is brought in, he's maybe an illegal, they have strangled someone to near death on the street to grab their phone. The judge looks at them, slaps 7 months on them. 7 months later
they're on the street.
They're out of prison in the street. 2 years later, they hear that they have killed 3 people. Now they are brought back so when they are brought back, people are like, but this person had already strangled someone in the streets. Who released him to the street? So guys, are now the public debate now in America is, should judges who release these people back, repeated offenders, and they come back and do crime, be held liable? Because why does someone who has strangled someone this is attempted murder, and you slap months, they know they can do it again, and the consequences are not going to be proportionate to the crime they're going to do. So it sort of encourages them, especially
in a system like America, where the statistics are very clear of how many people who are released from prison.
Yes, repeat offenders. So that debate should be brought, and this is something that nobody seems to be talking about, but there are people who actually helped Okero to escape the first time he killed someone. Not tried to kill, not done what? Actually killed someone. And the mother is out there. She has said, my son was killed. The dates are clear. There was a fire at police. All these things should be, those people should have been the first people to be brought to trial to say, how did you manage to let this young man escape from justice the first time? Because they are as liable. It's like setting a dog on a leash. Who let the dogs out? You did. You set free a monster. You open for the dragon. He has taken lives of children. You see that kind of thing? So these DPCs and whoever were in charge of that file, and the parents and whoever aided and abetted that young man is equally guilty, and the blood of these 4 children is hanging on their heads. Now, to go to trial. So because of that sentiment of shock and unprecedented nature, I can understand the reaction had to be a public theater. So I can understand when the president says, let this, because this is a crime against society, let it be in the society where it happened. So the public court is there. It is fast-tracked. But I can tell you that I think the young man is going to, you don't need to read it anywhere to know that the young man is going to be convicted. One way or the other. Whether witnesses hold up, whether the
evidence is lacking.
The evidence is lacking, whether the defense puts up a spirited fight. I think that the society can only, there are already critics to the way he's being handled. He's allowed to say, but they bring out people who are just...
Eddie Muto was brought limping. This one is receiving soda.
He's receiving soda. He's happy. He's talking to the judge like they went to school together. On
Friday, he told his lawyers to pay attention. He said, pay attention.
So I think that one way or the other, he's going to be convicted. Conclusion. I think that, Harold, it's time to start to accept, especially in our kind of countries, that actually mental illnesses and mental health challenges happen. They
are reality.
As a former denier of that reality, I have come being schooled in the last few years. When I have seen mental cases and mental illnesses affect even the people that are close to me, I know this guy. Tanywede mwenge nti mutamivu, he does not smoke weed, weed but something has happened and has flipped their switches.
I get you.
So we have neglected this mental health thing like I used to neglect it, and I'm speaking from a point of personal guilt.
Once bitten.
But I think that someone who masters the strength to just go to school and I don't think that it's for riches like you are saying, because riches you want to do it.
That's what the witness was saying, not Harold. Don't kill them.
No. I'm just saying of course, you also said you had somewhere. Riches.
That was a witness. The government.
If you want to become rich, you're going to kill. Because to become rich means that you must have life. And you must have life in freedom. So if you do something that they are going to arrest you there immediately. Because it didn't look like he had an escape plan
perfect.
That he had an escape plan that it's as if he had just come to kill as many as he can possibly get. And I don't care what happens to me, I just want to kill. That kind of person has a lot of issues mentally. You know? I remember a report that came out that said 14 million Ugandans have mental, and we laughed at it and said, "Come on," and kept, making jokes. When someone makes a stupid statement and said, "This one, yes." But I think that it's time to open up the conversation as a country and say, how do we handle, especially this new generation? I don't know why it is common.
On that very point, I'm a firm believer, Nicholas, that the first thing we should do for this country, on that crusade to be mental, and I should bring one of the biggest mental health activists here, a very good friend, Janet Kantalama, for Safe Places. The first thing we should do is change the name of our National Mental Hospital.
Yes.
From the name Botavika. Like that should be the sign that the country is heading in that direction, because the name itself is stigmatizing. Like it means you are off your mind.
But let me ask,
and this is a rehabilitation.
Is it the institution that's called Botavika,
or it's the official
place?
Name?
Or it's the place?
Official name.
Because I thought that area is called also Uganda Botavika. So
it should be the start.
You have to
yes, it should be the start. I personally also don't like the name Chirudu, the hospital. It's as if they put you to die.
Yes.
And
smells of death.
Yeah, it should be a start of care. There's a very family that I know in Bushenyi where this gentleman had mental health issues. And by the way, we're not saying that this was a major problem, a diagonized issue, because some they can diagonalize, others might take longer until some things are done. But this brother confided in another brother and said, I am battling clinical depression. And the family said,
come on, you're in from
you're from something. And the gentleman jumped, I think, from the 6th floor.
Can you imagine?
Of a hospital while he was admitted and died. And the brother's speech at the burial is one of the things that have rung in my mind more. And he said, he would call the name of like the father and say, you were saying Mbu Nicholas Yekoza. Kati in that coffin, Yekoza. And after mentioning the different names that were saying, he put the mic down and left. And you can imagine that family going through that, because there are many things. You can imagine what we are talking about here is a trigger for very many things. The way things are going, someone does not, we are talking about the rates of unemployment, rental prices, education system. You can imagine a student at LDC who hasn't graduated for 3 years and they're telling them to repeat a course.
Yes.
Everything is as if designed to test the mental strength. And some people, because like any other part of our body, our strength differs.
Yes.
So it's high time that we take notice of these things and we do more than that. But the other part that I wanted to discuss about this case is the fact that if the justice system does not treat all suspects the same, it's not like that. Because you have a suspect that has been treated like this and the case is going to be concluded in 2 weeks. But there are people who haven't had trial, who haven't seen the judge for the past 7 years. And you want to make this a representation of an ailing justice system. There's a meme that goes around in lawyer circles where he's saying, when you studied law in a country that does not respect rule of law. And it's as sad as is, because the criminal justice system in the country, Nicholas, stinks. You've had a mother tell you that they reported a case.
Yes.
To police. And
a murder case.
They have a reference number.
A murder case. Not a case of
that's a capital
theft,
offense.
Not a case of...
they've slapped me, they've stolen my phone.
You know,
someone was saying when you go downtown and you say your phone has been snatched, like the reaction the police give you.
Come on. Come on.
Which bag do you put it in? Like, because it's
commonplace.
Yes, but that's the representation of the society that should not be. And that goes on, and there are 1,000 stories that we do not know. You just hear them, you hear it and you think it's such Nigeria, but it's a sad family. those families might never recover.
Yes.
Because it will go out in 4 months. We will just talk about this, maybe 1 or 2, but people will move on. But this is a permanent wound that is going on. And the justice system is just putting on a show, while there are 1,000 other stories that the justice system is not represent. The deputy speaker in parliament, on the floor of parliament, was talking about a gentleman who had been in prison for 11 years.
On remand,
and he had never seen a judge. And that's the criminal justice system.
This is someone with a family, with people, with a name.
Charged with an offense that does not carry a maximum sentence of 3 years.
Can you imagine?
We move on to the next topic.
Thank you.
And I know we are 1 hour down. So Nicholas will just beat through these. 1, there's a talk to extend the tenure of members of parliament and the president to 7 years.
This talk has been around.
It's renewed.
For a while now. I think from even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the president was
actually
saying...
started when Amama was prime minister.
Yes. They were saying that apparently 5 years is too few.
Yes. First 2 we are recovering from the election.
One,
then I'm appointing cabinet. Then I work for 1. Then I'm campaigning again.
Then primaries start again. But for me, I think that Rwanda, of course, put 7-year terms. There is talk of your friend, the revolutionary in Zimbabwe. Also,
that's what we were talking about, yes.
But also, they are trying to amend the constitution. They have. So that
there were proposals.
Mnangagwa can run again. And that's what I was telling you about. You see, revolutions are emotional. But in and of themselves, they don't actually, to bring change, it must be a fundamental,
not
revolution. Yeah. That's why even eventually, for a true revolution to come out to bring fruits, they say that a revolution eats its children. Yeah. That's why they like sort of Maximilian Robespierre, although they were active participants of the French Revolution and the initial...
They didn't see, the fruits there.
There's a time which came in the reign of terror in 1793 to 94.
And their heads were on the
guillotine. Where their heads had to be put on the guillotine. Yeah? Because some of these children of the revolution have the trauma from the past. So if a revolution does not sometimes eat these children, it cannot bear true fruits. So what was in Zimbabwe cannot therefore be called a revolution. It was just a change of guards. Yeah. Where were we?
We were now still talking.
Yes, about on the 7th. Forgive me when I.
Please, you are allowed. It
my mind goes in so many different places. So Ruto has also proposed it in Kenya.
That's true.
Yeah, and but for me, I think that 5 years is enough time, because while you're looking at the good, we must also look at the bad. That if
you made a mistake,
Nakawa East made a mistake to elect the MP, 7 years is a long time to correct that mistake. 7 years is half a generation.
Especially with the rules in the constitution as far as impeachment is concerned, and how convoluted they are.
7 years is a very, very long time for them to realize that no, we need to fast to we need to do this kind of thing.
And the other thing that the angle we need to discuss is which is a school of thought that I've seen that is being pushed by the helpless that do not believe in the democracy. That the 2 extra years would save us some money, the empty money that we spend in elections, whose results that we know. Maybe we also need to address that stream of P70.
I understand that, and I see it. Because you see, when elections are not... Now, the circus that happened in Masaka, and I'll keep referring to it as long as it makes sense. Or here in Kampala Central, or in Nakawa East. Or
it actually pisses me every day that Mwanga Chivumbi is in prison.
Or in Kawempe...
Sorry for another day.
Or in Kawempe South. Yeah? That kind of fracas, and some people are dying for absolutely nothing. The result is already predetermined. You know? Or the mayor of, we've talked about the 2 mayors of Chira municipality and Wachiso district. Yeah. So I think that in that to the extent to which
it postponed the circus.
Yeah. They have a point that they are making, because some lives are lost, some people are in prison. Yeah.
huge
expenditure.
Borrowed money.
On borrowed money. Every group is being given money now. These blood suckers, these vampires, are all over during the election period.
Quick fire still, we have to move. The next thing I need you to address is the fallacy of separation of powers. Nicholas, in every state, as a student of history, you know that in any democratic institutions, one of the things that must stand out is the separation of powers. The judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And most importantly, that the executive is not the first hand of government, but one of the three. That the parliament is not the third arm of government, but one of the three. That each checks on the other. But in the status of Uganda, where now the president can dictate who goes to parliament and not, the MPs are pro money more than service to the nation. And then you have one of the most vivid pictures and representation of the doctrine of separation of powers in Uganda is when the Black Mambas entered the High Court, I think 2008.
Yes. But
now we also have a Chief Justice swearing from the president's farm. I can give 1,000 examples.
And you have the president as the final person that determines who becomes Speaker of Parliament.
That can go on and on. So on non-fallacy, and then you now have the discussion of what made headlines this week to discuss that topic, where the president in Chankwazi stands and says, you guys, I know you have been going through a lot. Now, what we're going to do is that each one of you, we are going to give you 100 million. That is in addition to because we have 556 MPs. If each one is going to receive 315 million
for the cars,
that is 175 billion that the taxpayer will bear. We can go on now. The MPs have fronted another thing to take care of their insurance and specialized treatment, which will be around, is it 5 billion?
5 billion, yes.
5 billion.
65 plus.
Yes. And now if you add on the 37 billion that has been given by the parliament, by a mere speech of Menazeke Mfufu, the country is spending. From that retreat, most of MPs are going to parliament to discuss the sovereignty bill, which has been pushed, and you saw the advert that was pushed out by the clerk to parliament for public discussion, which means this hell is happening. And there's no other man in the fire. Now we are there alone. What is the representation of the status of things as far as that discussion, and how the typical democracy vis-a-vis what we have? What's going on?
I think what we have cannot be described as a democracy, because for something to be described as a democracy, the pillars of democracy lie, one, in the separation of power of the three arms of the state,
and the rule of law.
Yes,
and constitutionalism.
Constitutionalism and the rule of law. And number 3, fair, regular, and free elections. And we can discuss from
I've seen our 3 cooking stones and what we have. And
so from those 3 cooking stones, you can already see that what we have cannot be described as a democracy. But we must maintain the farce of it so that, we can,
a dictatorship.
So that we can appear as among the number. But the truth of the matter is that the president has become too strong. His hand is everywhere. Yeah? He, like we were saying shortly before, says he's now the one they consult to free someone. Meaning it's no longer a court process. Yeah? You might find that we're here speaking when the discussion whether to give bail to Mufumbiro or whatever came down to
a phone call.
Is that kind of thing? So I don't think I think that we would be wasting time to talk about
service for basic. Yes, I remember the phone.
I think
call.
It would be wasting time to talk about separation of power, because the truth of the matter is that is so 2000 in Uganda. Yeah, when justice of the Supreme Court used to make a decision, and it is a decision. When parliament used to be parliament and debates and censures Museveni's ministers does not agree to some resign, 6th parliament. Yeah? That is the time of Akapaburo and Ayume. It's not now. Yeah? 2, when you talk about the giving of money, I said here, 2 podcasts ago, when we discussed the budget and whatever, 2 or 3, that there is an attempt by the people that already hold the high offices in Uganda, the people that are mostly well compensated. Politics has become a get rich quick and public service. Yeah. You are already the most paid civil servant, one of the most paid civil servants.
Why Agala insurance?
You are already the one that does not pay
pay as you are,
payee on your allowances and whatever. You are the one who
gets fuel,
gets a car of 315
high
million,
road clearance,
road clearance.
So many potholes.
Yes, you are the one getting favors of 100 million from a president. You cannot pay your health. You cannot buy an insurance policy from Sanlam and Britam and these vendors. What is it that we are creating a society that we are not part of? What can that 5 billion do in the cancer unit in Molago? What can that money do? What can this, how many billions of the cars?
30, that would be 35? Because it's, let me just check.
300, is it 315?
315. Because,
times?
Yeah. That's because each one is giving 556. That's 175 billion.
What can that do on the roads of Kampala Metropolitan? 175 billion. Yeah? People were complaining yesterday also. When it rained, do you know they abandoned this road of Chira Kasangati?
That was still under.
They just got parked and left. Because and I saw General Katumba
4 trillion in debt for contractors.
I saw exactly. General Katumba said most of these roads are started when we don't have money. You see that kind of thing. So they pay half. Some of the contractors put in their own money. The money that is agreed, it fails to come through. They just abandon a project. So what can 175 billion do?
Do in such, yes.
What can 37 billion do?
A lot.
For a health sector, for these things. So I concluded by saying that there is a deliberate plan for these people to create an El Dorado, that they live in
a broken system.
Yes, that they live in. If you have bad roads, they have high clearance cars.
Yeah.
If you are suffering in Molago and Chirudu and wherever, you just say Chirudu sounds like a place that people go to like you can't come. If they say you have a patient, where are they? In Chirudu. You just imagine. There's a friend of ours who they're just still up and coming, and they had their child delivered at Molago, and they went through, a very traumatizing part. The nurses are rude. You have to go and get gloves. You have this, and they have been told no at Nianato. It's all good. It's government, and by the time the things they went through said, but you could have just added on some small money
and just gone to a different
institution. It's that kind of thing. But this is a matter of life, and this is a mother and a child, in a death and life situation, like giving birth can be.
I know. So please, let's wrap up on that.
Our leaders and civil servants are trying to create a different Uganda from the one that is a consequence of their policies and actions. And that reality cannot be overestimated, even when the president is seen to give them money. People who have already, and we can discuss that money in different ways and formats. But I don't think that there's a saying,
I know. We are making a big party for
already a rich man. Yeah,
I get you.
So it's supposed to be the poor man that should come and fundraise, but someone is already rich, but you're making it's not proper government planning, and I want to tell you that it's not sustainable.
The fight against corruption, the story of Agnes Nandutu, who was sentenced to 4 years in prison, Nicholas. And you are the people I've been saying, show us that you are ready to fight corruption. But also the other side of the story, that this was not the only name that was castigated in the scandal, that you had over 5 notable people, including the Prime Minister, the Speaker, Amasurugorobi ministers. There was another gentleman, I think. Yes. Who were listed, and iron sheets were retrieved, but you have this one person, and then these other people are free. Should we just be comfortable that someone has been taught a lesson to show people that there's a fight against corruption, or this is just a show and the real fight hasn't even begun and there's no will for it?
Harold, 2 things can be correct at the same time. I want to believe that that's the case here. One, Agnes Nandutu is a thief that does not deserve mercy, that deserves what she's going through. That one we can correctly say that is correct.
Even with the personal story aside and
which personal story?
No, of course, people have been saying a single mother of
a single mother. You don't become a thief because you're a single mother. No, come on.
You are a journalist covering at Parliament.
Let me ask you.
Grass to grace, back to grass.
Single mother. How many single parents or how many children without people were these iron sheets?
How many single mothers didn't have iron sheets
on their roofs that were going to benefit them?
Even when you returned them.
Just shortly before this campaign, okay, in the same time that these iron sheets were supposed to be given out to those people, there was famine in that region. You remember? People fundraising food.
Yes, yeah. You think there's food there, okay. Yeah? She actually said there's food
these
there.
Are people who already don't. These are people already who don't have food. Yeah? You are the line minister. Because you see, the reason why these other people escape is that they have plausible deniability, that I found iron sheets on my farm. I also used them. That's
not plausible deniability, but okay, maybe the Ugandan context.
The Ugandan context of plausible deniability. Yes. Yeah? But this is the line minister in charge of issuance, in charge of records, in charge of distribute. He's the one issuing and distributing. You see that kind of thing? So Agnes Nandutu deserves absolutely no. The only reason why she seems to attract some bit of mercy
is selective justice.
Is because of the selective justice. To say she was not the only person.
We both stole guavas, they beat on.
And from that point, I also see a point to become a little bit sympathetic to her, to say, but honestly, if they stole together, if we're on the podcast together with Harold,
why are they arresting?
Why are they arresting only Harold?
Nicholas.
Are they only arresting Harold? But it's so important to arrest one so that the other one can make noise.
Then you would say, this guy was a spy. How come they didn't fetch him? How come they
take both of us? I don't know. But it's that kind of thing. So Agnes Nandutu, truly, stealing from the most unfortunate people in Uganda, I personally cannot sympathize.
By the poverty index.
Yes, cannot sympathize with that. And I am very sorry for people who like her, who love her rosy stories, single mother from grass to grace. No. She's a thief. She stole from the most unfortunate people.
And justice has taken its course.
Yes. However, she is a victim also of the system. And we must address that.
How? Yeah? I think
because a system where the head of state calls people to his farm, awards them millions of money, purportedly, allegedly, because they are going to parliament to finish a task. And this is not the first time, not the second time.
It's a trend.
It has become a trend. In a region where...
Before any controversial bill,
a system where the same people who you had arrested before, you now call them for a warm embrace in a national... Why in the same breath saying this is Sanja, this is Sanja, no corruption. No corruption. Then you call these people, come. Hey, my daughter, she hides away from me. And I think that is the reason why the lady was hiding from herself, because she knows she's guilty. And he's open. He said that she's hiding away from me. When I come here, she passes the other side. The guilty run when no one is what?
Chasing them.
When no one is chasing them, that's what she's doing. That's a biblical principle. It's a kind of thing. But you call her, you warm embrace, you sign to endorse people that have stolen. And I think that Nandutu has become a victim of the system. But this system, Harold, as I conclude this point.
Please, in a minute.
Yeah. Has become detrimental to the common man, the people of Uganda. Yeah.
We are the victims.
Let me give you an example. And this is very unfortunate. And that's why I tell you that sometimes things can happen somewhere. And I know Museveni doesn't know this. Because the Museveni that we have known and studied for a while and has been our president now for some of us who have seen him for quite a while. There are some things
you guys who were born in the 80s.
There are some things. Me, I'm a really very young man. And Anita Among recently said that
it's the troubles of Uganda that make you look old.
He's a young man. He's a young man. But this week, so I mean like Monday or so, I don't know when the news was reported, and don't ask me where I had the news, because it's a gacha entry. But I saw a clip moving around. Not that I was watching. But it's also,
I believe you, Brad.
So in Bushenyi, in a place called Chamuhunga, which you might know.
I know. The tea growers.
One day, women come to, because now this is rainy season, people are planted, now they are weeding. Most of them are weeding their beans, their what. Guys are preparing to harvest their coffee and everything. And because the daily life of people in the village is to go and work on their farms. So one morning they come to work on their farms, they find tractors with Chinese excavating, being surrounded by an army of people.
This is in Chamhunga.
Yes, this is
private land.
Private land. Private land. No one knows who these people are. No one knows in the security system of the LC.
No one knows who's on the ground.
Sub-county, parish, what? Nobody knows who they are. Who gave them permission to come to their land? Who is in charge? Because they're excavating.
I know a similar story in Uwezu.
They're excavating that they are looking for gold. Now, Harold, honestly speaking, first of all, and eventually they pack and go. So these people don't know. Who do we talk to? Who is going to compensate us? Are they coming back? Do we go ahead and, So the question is, therefore, who do we complain to? Who do we complain to? And this arrogance, for me, this is what I was telling a friend when I watched the story. These are Chinese investors in gold. 10,000 US, just omutoro gwado. 10,000, would have been enough to call these people together and say, guys, we are looking for gold. If you find gold on your land, you will be compensated even better. This is a national resource. Even the laws, even the laws say when they find gold on your land, I think the government textile or something, you are the lawyer. But since now you have beans, you have your plantation, these are bean, and the one of the lady was saying, that's 800,000, which about $200. In my things, I was estimating this. Some of them are long-term plants like coffee. Those one you have to compensate a little bit more.
Depending on the span of the plant.
Yes. What do these people do? They absolutely see. Can Chinese investors who are investing in a plant like gold, even us when we go to places, for those of us who are into this kind of businesses and whatever, and you have money, you prepare for pilot study. I will drive to this place. I will check out these people. I will do this. I will walk around with an LC person. Maybe I will live with some company. How much more an investor in gold, a foreign investor of a resource like gold. But you see, we all know who controls the gold trade in this country. And
that's why they can be able to have an army around.
Yes. So I asked myself, I asked this guy, the guy that we're watching it with, the allowances, lunch and everything they are put in this army, this small army surrounding these people, could compensate these people. But no, the arrogance, these are landlords. Everyone is a tenant. They are high on a mountain looking down at us like Simba and Mufasa. We mean absolutely nothing in our nation. And Harold, as I conclude this and our viewers, these things that continue happening, coupled with, I don't have time, coupled with this destruction of property that has happened without compensation and proper planning, coupled with this sovereignty bill that is coming to disenfranchise people of their basic humanity, where someone gets out, the person who goes to Saudi Arabia, and I didn't know how bad conditions were, Harold, in Saudi Arabia.
You had also these Arabs headlines this week.
Slap an Arab when you see them. Slap an Arab where you see them.
The violators.
Yeah. Do you know that these people, I'm told, I have been watching clips. I'm told, but these people these Kadamas have that trauma. These people don't even flush their toilets.
They don't. You have to flush.
They layer. Can imagine reaching a point of layering. Like they have 3 kids, they reach the toilet, they keep layering. Nobody can. That is so high school
because
stuff.
They have a Ugandan someone who.
Because in high school, when we because for us we didn't have latrines, we had toilets, and sometimes water would go because definitely even for short time, even if it's just 3 hours, you find, and because guys have nowhere else to go, you had no outside toilets. It was basically if water left, you had nowhere to shower and whatever.
This is entire school.
Guys, come
please
on.
Proceed. We don't have time. We don't have time. Please
was that
and make
necessary?
The point.
So guys would layer, but then of course water would come. Among this entire school, water would come back and everything would be covered. This is the president's school. Yeah. So this is what these people go through. But someone who has left home, Harold, to go and do this kind of work, and now they can't send money to their grandmother to take care of their children.
MP do you think that bill because he received 100 million?
Amidst everything that goes on in that land where they are, Me, I used to think that, maybe.
That's why actually
when I heard the stories,
this on government, that's why I don't understand relatives that steal those guys' money.
Yes,
evil beings.
They're very evil. These people go through a lot.
Someone sends you money to buy for them land in Wakiso, and they come back. You've been taking pictures of Nicholas's house, giving them updates that this is their house.
But someone who reaches a point, some people come in body bags, but they say, let me take the risk to change my life. Yeah. You've not given them an option. There's no employment here. Now you're designating them foreigners. Yeah? Harold, let me conclude by this. And now me.
We are
1 minute.
Peace. Let's conclude
1 minute.
Go home.
1 minute. Yeah? The Tunisian Revolution, or what they
that would be 1 minute.
To be called the Tunisian
the director is looking at you.
Revolution of Dignity. Yeah? Was because people had been stripped. Muhammad Bouazizi, before the self-immolation in December of 2010, before that self-immolation, his goods, he was like this, he was just a common hawker. He was not a government functionary. He was not a former general in the army. He was not a public intellectual on these platforms. He was not anyone. No, he was just a hawker. You see that kind of thing? Yeah? But because that day they had stolen his wares, they had denied him license. They had, then he has to bribe this one. Then until he went to the
remaining money I have.
He went to the mayor's office. I think when they finally stole his goods that day, and kicked him, and he said, "Guys, I can't make a living. It feed my family. What do you want me to do?" Actually, he had even borrowed that money, $200 for those wares that he had. And he said, "If you don't give me my things, I will burn myself." And he burnt himself, and it did not only depose the president Ben Ali and lead to the Tunisian revolution, but the entire Arab Spring had its roots in one man,
a desperate man, and the events of the past 1 month or so, Harold, have pushed this, and that's why I am really, sometimes but the Museveni of 10 years ago, honestly, was much, much better than what we are seeing right now. These things have tracked down to the common man, to the dignity of the very last person. That bill is a representation of how bad things are.
Has gone down to the last person. And I want to tell you that this is not sustainable. You can shoot the messenger. You can say everything. You can ban these platforms so that people don't get to know. But one day, these people they are displacing from town one day, they have absolutely nothing to lose. They can't go to hospital, and they intend to find drugs there. At least chase them when that they have some kind of refuge. And that's what Museveni used to do. Yeah, he used to leave some space for you to, but now everything is being squeezed. Do you know how many people will not have jobs because they are targeting NGOs and NUP because of that
accounts for fun?
Yeah, you can't now borrow 100k. In my business, 100k is not a lot, especially for people who want to scale and export and whatever. You're looking at that as so you're wondering, these guys, honestly speaking, what do you want Ugandans to do? One day someone is going to self-immolate down there in Chiseka or wherever they will have kicked them. But like I've said,
we have to, I'm using this opportunity for my parting shots to always shame a department that is not doing its job. Nicholas, and the viewers want to tell you that the Ministry of Lands and Housing, Wakiso, the zonal office at Wakiso, has spent over 1.5 months without a printer for titles. The printer is dead. Everyone who has lodged a title has not received it because the printer is dead. And the reason they keep getting is procurement is happening. Everything is frozen for over 1.5 months because of that, and it goes on. I thought I would look in the camera and tell them, shame on you, we expect better. I also want to express that same sadness in the way the judiciary dealt with the Mufumbiro matter in the wake of the passing of the wife. That's not the Uganda that we would want to see. You can imagine every day what that gentleman goes in.
When we resume, maybe next week, please, you can allow us to talk about this Mufumbiro issue with an angle on transition. Because you see, Harold, a time should come when the people that should be able to foresee, because these things, you don't need to be a prophet to see them, that where the country is going,
too obvious.
We need to start to build some kind of harmony. The gesture of Mufumbiro being released to go and bury the wife
would have healed
so many hearts. But when you continue this brutality, when you continue this squeezing, allow me to conclude for this one example of our systems here. Canal Box talked about shaming people.
Yes.
Has had very, very bad network since this week started. Canal Box Rwanda
on Intel.
Canal Box Rwanda came and said that, guys, our international whatever has, they gave a reason to their subscribers, but you can never see something from why? Because the reason, the way of doing business in Uganda is by arrogance, is by lack of accountability. The person that is supposed, the regulator that is supposed to regulate is either
hunting down anything that is close to political
or taking
threats,
photos with people to show that they have arrived. So this country, Harold, has reached a point where it does not work for its citizens, and it is not sustainable for God and my country.
Put your phone in airplane mode and in VPN, and let's go home. And for our viewers and everyone who's been watching, we thank you very much for giving us your time and attention. We do this for God and our country, and we hope that things will get better. Please do not refrain from commenting and sending us your comments on the issues that we are talking about, or if you want a topic or something that you need us to note, we will be glad to do that. So until the next episode, we want to say thank you very much. Continue to share the link when you find it, and subscribe if you haven't, because we are doing this to see a better Uganda and raise our children in a better society than one we are growing in. Thank you very much. Until next time. So if you love what we're doing here, why not be part of the making by helping us grow what we believe is the most insightful podcast in Uganda? Subscribe, hit the bell, and share this video everywhere. For your support will keep us growing.